Getting into Bitcoin though, what we can see, I'm going to look at the price chart right here. So I'm going to do some technical analysis right here. So what you can see is over the past hour or so, the price has actually jumped a little bit after really a huge downturn over the last few days. And this was because of massive inflation figures. And you might ask, well, if Bitcoin is an inflation hedge and inflation is really high, then why isn't the price going up? That's the whole point of an inflation hedge, right? Well, so inflation is so bad right now that it's actually gone past the point of any store of value being good. So because inflation is so high, the Fed now essentially have to tighten their monetary policy as early as possible, raise interest rates, which are both not good for risk asset prices. People take risk off the table, and so risk asset prices aren't going to do too well in that environment. However, we've already seen that pullback. What happens with markets is because they look 3 to 6 months ahead is that they already knew this inflation figure was going to be outrageous, and it was, and they've already done what they needed to do in terms of taking risk off the table. That is why you see us already from 69,000 all the way to 50,000 now. So we actually got a lot lower than this over the last few days, maybe 47,000. So we've already had this big sell-off. And of course, on the news itself, because everyone knows the news beforehand, the prices rise a little bit when the news is confirmed. So that is the intraday and the short-term price action. But I want to look at the Bitcoin chart right here and really go through some technical analysis on this and some key levels that I'm looking at. So the first one is, you can see down here, July, August. This was the low, right? This was after the China FUD and the banning and everything like that. So this was a kind of a low print right here. And then from here, then we started this big uptrend into the last high. What you can see, this blue line right here is just kind of the perfect trend line that we're drawing. And you can see these points that I've connected here. And then recently we've broken down through this. If you subscribe to my crypto investor course, you'll know that trend lines should give you an area of value and not a specific price, because life isn't perfect. So what we can see is these areas of value by the green boxes. And what you can also see is higher lows. So this is what leads me to believe we are still in a wider uptrend as for right now. So you can see down at this low, we start rising, we have the peak for that run and then a pullback and then meeting support here. But this is an area of value right here. And then we have another run and then another pullback, and this is the area of value. What you can see by the green boxes is that we are still by far and away in a higher low than this second print. That tells me that we're still in an uptrend. Yeah, yes, we did break through this specific trend line, and that is unfortunate. But when just looking at areas of value, and with the immense strain and pressure that inflation is having on the whole market right now, including sell-offs in the NASDAQ, I think Bitcoin has fared quite well considering these huge macro events that are really pushing asset prices around. We are still in a macro area, an area of value that is a higher low than before. You can also see these 3 yellow lines that I've drawn, and these are really the important lines for me that I'm looking at. The first one is, you can see that we hit support right here. It's a big support level that we've hit around 47,000, just happens to coincide with around about $1 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. So you can see that right here. The reason I've chosen this is because you can see previously in the chart, we had some resistance here, we had some resistance here, and then it was support around here. So there's a lot of areas where that has touched this level. So this is a key level for me. The second level down here that you can see is another area where we've had support at these times, another level of support here. With a breakdown through that, it turned into resistance. And then when we broke through that resistance, we went into all-time highs right here. So for me, this is a key area around 44,600. And this would actually be a very key area to break through, not a good one in terms of the price of Bitcoin. The third area of value right here, this line is around 41,000. And this would, if the price got down here and we continued down here, this isn't good for the price of Bitcoin, in my opinion, and for the kind of medium-term trend. What that's saying is that the price has completely broken down and there just is no continuation of this uptrend. We're still in the uptrend now. Even down at 44.5, I would say macro was still in a wider uptrend. People are going to start panicking right here. And then down at this level, this is actually the level around 41,000 that if we break through this support, as you can see, and we actually invalidate this higher low, then it's a new part of the chart and we're going to be really in uncharted territory. So I still think there's loads of area to the downside where we could even continue this kind of wider macro uptrend. And obviously this is just technical analysis. It cannot predict where prices are going, but the market has already priced in rate hikes and it's already priced in tightening of monetary policy. That's what this move was. So I think we're going to really consolidate here, and you can look at these levels for prices to see if we bounce hard and we start testing this trend line, and maybe this trend line turns into resistance. I would say it's incredibly bullish for the medium term price of Bitcoin. We also had Plan B actually tweet today about his price predictions for Bitcoin. Stock to flow has not been invalidated. One of his other models was invalidated. This one is still there. He says, I don't think 69 was the top for this halving. If 69 were the top, then a typical bear market is an 80% drawdown, and that would mean around 14K. He just doesn't believe that. I also agree with this, that an 80% drawdown is unlikely. Is this the top or not? I don't know, and I don't really care, to be honest. But what I'm saying is that the low is probably not going to be an 80% drawdown, just because the investor base is so different now. The outlook is different. In previous cycles, this was always a Wild West coin that no firm or anyone would touch. Now we have big players involved that aren't going to sell and actually buy dips. This is massively different. You have Congress this week basically giving the green light to crypto and crypto exchanges to get regulated. And so then 80% drawdown, it's unlikely for me it could happen. As I said, these three areas, these price levels are really the key areas that I'm looking at for the short term. But yes, an 80% drawdown to 14K seems extremely unlikely in this instance. One of the things that I'm looking at now is how much of the price of Bitcoin and therefore the crypto market was that free money that came in when the government were just handing out checks willy-nilly for thousands of dollars saying, here's loads of free money. How much of that is still in the price of Bitcoin and altcoins? That we don't know. That has to be drawn down. We know rates are going to be going up next year, and we know the monetary policy is tightening. So how much of the price now of Bitcoin is the moon boy stuff, and how much is fundamental value? In the future, with crypto, unfortunately, you won't be able to buy meme coins and have them go up millions of percent. The monetary policy is going to be different. The rates are going to be different. That was a once in a lifetime thing, and we're in a different scenario now where you have to look at fundamental value and projects that are going to grow over time to actually make the right investment decisions. One of the cryptos that I'm actually looking at to participate in some of this growth over time is actually FTX token. And the reason why this is the case, just as an example here, I'm not saying get into it, is because SBF, or Sam Bankman-Fried, was actually at the congressional hearing with Coinbase and Circle and Bitfury, some of the biggest US-based crypto companies. FTX was there with them. Where was Kraken? Nowhere to be seen. Other companies, nowhere to be seen. FTX were chosen as a company to go to Congress and testify and tell them about the crypto market. That means that FTX, for me, are a chosen company to build this infrastructure for the States, and that's bullish for me. Just looking at FTX though, why do I think this is just kind of the wrong price right now? 20% down this week. Why is that? Well, we're seeing prices come off. Exchange tokens are very volatile. They have a high beta. So if the price of Bitcoin is coming off and trading volumes come down, exchange tokens are going to get hit extremely hard. FTT, the token FTX, is worth 5.5 billion. So let's just keep that in mind. If we go to spot trading volumes, you can see that FTX are actually number 6. So yeah, they're not top 1 or 2, and yes, Coinbase is way higher than them. But if you look at the trading volume over the last 24 hours, FTX did 3.2 billion, and Coinbase did 5 billion. So you've got FTX, let's say around 60% of the trade volume of Coinbase. If we go over to derivatives, you can actually see that FTT, or the token FTX, is number 2 in the whole world behind Binance. And they actually do a ton of volume, almost 15 billion in traded volume over the last 24 hours. That is insane. Coinbase is nowhere to be seen here. So you have to keep that in mind. So they're way higher than Coinbase and Crypto.com in terms of futures. I don't even think you can do futures on those. Crypto.com and Coinbase, they do higher spot volume than FTX, but not by a massive amount. So if we look back at the prices, you can see that FTX token is worth 5.5 billion and Crypto.com is worth 15 billion, 3 times more, but they don't do 3 times the volume. You know, there are other things to consider, of course, including all the advertising and the fact that if you use Crypto.com, you have to buy CRO, stake it on account, and you can't sell it. Very clever from Crypto.com. But FTT, as an exchange, do a ton of volume, and they're obviously a chosen exchange as well. So there's massive divergence really between the value of FTT, the value of Crypto.com, and then Coinbase valued at, I think, around 50 billion, which is like 10 times more than FTT, even though they do nowhere near 10 times more the trading volume as a business. Now, there are many other things to consider, but this is just an example of what I would look at really when it comes to actually researching crypto projects and not just aping into, meme coins, which is going to be the thing we need to do when actually prices now, I think, are going to have less of the free money premium in them and actually just be valued more as more institutional investors come in on their fundamental value.